Beto O'Rourke is in, dramatically reshaping the Democratic race for president. CNN's Layla Santiago live in Iowa, where Beto O'Rourke spent the night. Layla.
That's right, John and Allison. After 4 months of sort of saying, look, I'm thinking about this. This is something I'm considering for myself, for my family. He is finally making it official. All that anticipation coming to today, in which he releases this video with his wife, Amy, saying, I'm officially in the race. Let me let you listen to a bit of it.
Amy and I are happy to share with you that I'm running to serve you as the next president of the United States of America. This is a defining moment of truth for this country and for every single one of us. The challenges that we face right now, the interconnected crises in our economy, our democracy, and our climate have never been greater. And they will either consume us or they will afford us the greatest opportunity to unleash the genius of the United States of America. In other words, this moment of peril produces perhaps the greatest moment of promise for this country and for everyone inside of it.
So let's know that this announcement comes ahead of a 3-day tour here in Iowa, starting in Keokuk, Iowa, the southeastern part of the state. And as I've talked to his staff, there certainly seems to be a focus on places where President Obama won and then later President Trump won, kind of giving a hint, a details as to what his approach may be. I actually had a chance to talk to him yesterday in the airport as he was heading here, coming into Iowa, and he was excited. He often says he wants to run for something, not against something. Here's the thing. You talk to a lot of Democrats out there right now, and they will tell you that they are running against something. What's important to them is to get President Trump out of the White House. So I asked him, can he take the same approach that he did in the midterm elections against Senator Ted Cruz, where he sort of became this rising star in the Democratic Party, and apply that on a national level to do that, to get the Democratic nomination and beat President Trump? He seems to think that he can. He is saying that is his goal and that he will take that approach where he didn't use PAC money, where he didn't have pollsters, where it was really grassroots efforts in Texas, and apply that on a national level. Will that work? We'll have to wait and see. When it comes to the issues in the weeks leading up to this, he was already emailing his supporters, really talking about immigration, the prohibition of marijuana, as well as the criminal justice system. Last night, when I talked to him, he was really focused on climate change, and I expect that will be very much a part of his talks as he kicks off his campaign.
All right, Layla, thank you for the breaking news for us. Joining us now to talk about all of this, we have Alex Burns, national political correspondent for the New York Times, MJ Lee, CNN national political correspondent, John Avlon, CNN senior political analyst, and Joe Lockhart, former Clinton White House press secretary. Joe, I want your strategic brain here. So, just moments ago, Beto has announced, how does this reshuffle the deck as we know it?
You know, I think it gives someone who's not on the most progressive part of the Democratic Party, out there with Sanders and Warren's, someone more to the middle, but with charisma and with a life story and creating excitement. So I think it balances out the race quite a bit.
We're 5 minutes in now, 4 minutes and 30 seconds into the Beto O'Rourke era. Alex Burns, what do the other campaigns feel about this? How do they look upon Beto O'Rourke, and who perhaps fears him the most?
Well, look, I think most of them fear him quite a bit. I think that's common to most of the rest of the field. But talking to campaign strategists over the last few days, they've all been anticipating this would happen, whether it's today or next week. It's the candidates who are banking on a mood of really kind of generational change who feel the most nervous about this. That if you are a Kamala Harris, if you're a Cory Booker, if to some extent it's a little counterintuitive if you're Bernie Sanders and you're counting on a movement of younger people who are rejecting the system as it is, even though, as Joe said, Beto is somewhat closer to the political middle, there is just something about the way he talks and his personality and his mindset about the system that poses a real challenge to these other candidates, poses a real challenge to them as well in terms of their ability to mobilize small donors online. A lot of young people who might have gone online to contribute to somebody who they liked in that first debate but hadn't seen before may already have their man now.
Look, there is something about him. I mean, according to Vanity Fair, not everybody gets this treatment. I mean, he just announced 5 minutes ago, and he is today on the cover of Vanity Fair. That is rock star treatment.
Annie Leibovitz, literally Annie Leibovitz,
right,
rock star treatment.
I mean, and so what is it? MJ, about him?
I mean, the reason I'm just excited this morning as a political reporter with Beto getting in is that I feel like this is a turning point in our coverage of the 2020 campaign. We now have a full field with obviously the very obvious exception of Joe Biden and his decision. And for the people who are paid to do this every day, and I'm talking about political reporters, people who work on campaigns, political analysts, I think he has been the single person that has been the most difficult to sort of handicap and predict what is going to happen when he gets in. And now that he is in, I think we are going to start to get some of those answers. Can he have and recreate sort of the moment that he had in Texas nationally? Can he do the fundraising that he did in Texas nationally? Is he going to have a clear message? Do we know what his policy positions are really going to shape out to be, again, on a national stage? And again, I'm just excited that we are actually going to start finding out the answers to some of these questions.
Some of what seemed to excite people in Texas was the way he spoke. Not necessarily what he was saying, but the way he spoke. There was a moment, and it had to do with the football players who were kneeling during the national anthem. And what he said about that went viral. Let's play that for a moment.
Peaceful, nonviolent protests, including taking a knee at a football game to point out that black men, unarmed, black teenagers, unarmed, and black children, unarmed, are being killed at a frightening level right now, including by members of law enforcement, without accountability and without justice. That is why they are doing it, and I can think of nothing more American than to peacefully stand up or take a knee for your rights, anytime, anywhere, any place.
Two things about that. One, he didn't put the music to that video. Now this did, which shows you the kind of treatment he gets in general. Again, it's the Andy Leibovitz Vanity Fair. It's the now this, we're going to make you viral moment. We'll put it to music. That's what people like. The flip side of that is, where does he stand on all the issues that matter so much to Democratic voters? Do we really know?
Well, he certainly is a person who's been very open about his beliefs, and that's core to his appeal, right? It's the honesty, it's the passion, it's the inspiration, and he's not afraid of talking policy. That position you just showed wasn't the easy position for someone to take running for Senate in Texas. And it's the fact he did it in an inspirational way, and he wrapped it up, and actually this is an American tradition standard, that optimistic wrapping on a progressive message that can still resonate with the red state audience. That's what I think made him such an inspirational figure. And of course, the other factor, other than the fact he lost, let's not lose sight of that. He raised an unprecedented amount of money, and that is a gauge for how much he was able to inspire people. And whether that juggernaut can go on is the real question. Historically, Democrats have gone for the hot hand. They don't go for next in line. And that's why it'll be really fascinating to see a Biden-Beto dichotomy here, because there's no question out of 18, he's been the hot hand. But among the criticisms he's going to get is this Vanity Fair treatment. You know, this is the largest sort of announcement being, held in check by Vanity Fair since Caitlyn Jenner. And here he's gonna, and here no one gets that. And he's got to also be very careful to put the focus on the we, not the me, because that's an Achilles heel.
I hear him doing that. I mean, I hear him start. It sounds to me like he's very conscious of that. He starts with sort of why I want to do it, and for us, and for we. Catches himself. Yeah. I mean, I'm reading it in print here in the Vanity Fair piece. Does this change Joe Biden's calculus?
Absolutely not. I think Joe Biden is in, and he's just looking for the right way and the right time. I think I go back to my old boss, Bill Clinton, as a great political mind. And he says a couple things, which is that the optimist generally wins. I think Beto passes that test. The second test, which is more important, is it about, as John said, is it about me or is it about them? And I read the Vanity Fair story this morning. There was a lot about me in there, and a lot about why I want to do this, and not a lot about why I want to get that, what I'm going to do for the people. The last thing I'd say is, politics is often where you're defined by who you're up against. He was up against Ted Cruz, one of the most despised politicians on both sides of the aisle in the United States. He's now going to be compared with Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren. It's a harder thing. I'm not saying that he doesn't come in here strong. But the thing that really struck me about the Vanity Fair, and it could just be the way Vanity Fair wanted to cover the story, was it was all about him. And I think that doesn't translate as well when you're trudging around the fields of Iowa and in the snow in New Hampshire.
I want to show you where Beto O'Rourke stands right now in Iowa, which is, of course, the first state. that will vote in the caucuses there. You can see him at 5%. That's below where he was in December, January. There's been some slippage. That might be just because it took him a while to get into the race. The other key thing, and Joe brought up Cory Booker and Kamala Harris, MJ, is that this is seen as a moment by some where Democrats want to nominate either a woman or a minority. Beto O'Rourke is neither of those things. O'Rourke is a white male, and he's conscious of his white maleness. And in this Vanity Fair piece, let me just read you what he said here. He said, "So if I were to run, I think it's just so important that those who would comprise my team looked like this country. If I were to run, if I were to win, that my administration looks like this country. But I totally understand people who will make a decision based on the fact that almost every single one of our presidents has been a white man, and they want something different for this country. And I think that's a very legitimate basis upon which to make a decision."